Hi there, my name is Teni Brant, and welcome to Speak Dicely, the podcast where I get together with other tabletop enthusiasts and we speak dicely together. When it comes to tabletop role-playing games, there are some elements that are almost always guaranteed to be involved in your game. Rolling dice, roleplay, of course, and improvising. Much like role-playing, having to improvise can be a daunting idea for those with little experience. But today, we're going to shed a little light on the skill of improvising and hopefully unravel the mystery of how to begin developing that skill ourselves. Joining me today to talk about this subject are Adrian Kieda and returning guest Christy Clow. Hey there, folks.
Hello.
Hello.
That was an awesome intro.
Adrian. Immediately makes an appearance and then gives me the compliment.
I didn't know we were supposed to come with a compliment prepared, so now I look bad, but
I didn't think there was going to be a winner in this podcast, but now it's official. Adrian is winning.
Yes.
Damn it. I should have known. There's a winner in everything, so.
Happy to have you both on the show, and welcome back, Christy. What's great about this episode, Adrian, we've talked a lot about you over the last couple of episodes.
So I've heard.
And you're finally here.
That's true. I finally get to do an episode.
Oh, you're a busy person, that's for sure.
Yeah, it's a miracle. I was so worried that we wouldn't even get to do this. I was like, guys, I have to go home. I can't film any more bathrooms. I won't extend on that for the podcast, but I'm happy that I actually managed to make it home in a reasonable time.
And I believe in most countries, filming in washrooms is illegal, so don't pursue Adrian. He has reasons.
Yeah.
Oh dear. Well, so I've brought the two of you in here today because you both have, at least to my understanding, quite the extensive backgrounds in improvising.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah, absolutely. That's what I did a show 2 days ago. Another show tomorrow or Thursday. When's that? Well, there's lots of improv going
on. You know what? Before I get to the question I was thinking of, so Christy, you were on our first episode and our second episode, and I didn't get the chance during that to ask you, what is it that you're passionate about? And Adrian, I'll have you answer this question too. I want you to let the audience know what your deal is. Who are you?
I honestly was hoping that Adrian would have to go first for this.
I mean, if Adrian is fine going first, I'm okay with it.
Sure. This is a difficult question to answer, like, what are you all about? But what I do pretty much every day of my life is film videos. That's both my job and my hobby and passion. Doesn't mean I enjoy every step of the job part of it, because I realize it sounds like I love what I do. Sometimes my job is very stressful. Today I spent 5 hours filming bathrooms, and that's a part of making videos. But I also have opportunities to shoot some really fun videos. And so there we go. That's what I'm about. I make videos. There's a summary.
Damn, that was really good. What am I passionate about? I thought it was.
I don't even think it's that accurate, but it's like one part of it. So
you do make videos, so that part was very accurate. What am I passionate
You're
about?
You're at least not lying.
It's true. I'm not lying.
I am a huge fantasy nerd, and that to me covers pretty much all forms of media. So I love reading all kinds of books about fantasy, like any video game if it's fantasy centric, movies like Lord of the Rings, stuff like that. So that's what I'm trying to do with my current content creation, is just find different ways to pursue that passion and explore it. So I started making YouTube videos because I wanted to see how I could kind of bring fantasy elements into my daily life, just because, I don't know, we need to bring more magic into the world because it sucks otherwise. So
that's actually incredibly nice. I really like that.
Yeah, I love that.
Yes, Freaking nailed it right out the gate. No big.
Was terrified to answer, gave the answer that we needed.
It's a cool question to think about, because it's not something you even like, you're like, what's your deal? Like, what are you passionate about? It's not even something that I really think about. Like, I was like, when's the last time I even thought about that? So it's kind of like, it's like interesting to even consider what the answer to that is.
I know this isn't like the topic of the podcast, but it's definitely something I had to think about a lot during 2020, because I was trying to make like content that I was only like so interested in. And I was like, what do I actually want to do? And I was like, I need to double down on this nerd shit, because that's what I care about. And hopefully people will find it interesting too. Even if like the adults in my life don't fully understand what it is I'm trying to do, like I gotta just go for it. And it's been a lot of fun to do that. So yeah.
Good. Yeah. And no, I like this question, because I will admit I heard this on a podcast called Leighton Night. Leighton being one of the people that worked on the team for the video game Dream Daddy. And they asked their guests this question, and I was like, wow, that is really good. Because what I'd been doing before was asking people like what they did, but not everybody always enjoys their job. So I'm just like, what is it you love? And I think that's really nice.
I think so too. And I think it's something more people should be asked, because like, I don't think we always think about that, and it's like, that should be like the center of your life, really, if it can be. So
yeah, it's like that meme. It's like they always ask why do, but they never ask how do.
That's exactly what it's like. You're so right.
I don't know what that meme is. Great.
Maybe it's not a meme. Maybe I just made that up. Anyway. So
how do?
Adrian, as a first-time guest on this podcast, could you tell us a bit about your first-time experience with tabletop role-playing games?
Sure thing. I think the first session that I ever did of Dungeons and Dragons was back in university. It was our first year at Elia, which must have been third year university. And I didn't know anything about Dungeons and Dragons until then. I didn't even know why I started playing. I think everyone was just in the basement of the house playing D&D. And I was like, I don't know what this is, but I want to hop in on this. And so I remember Matt Costin, who I'm pretty sure has been on this podcast, helped me make my first character ever. I didn't know anything about it. And so I think like my entire concept for my first character, all I remember was like, I was like, Matt, I want to make the most useless character ever, but he's going to have a monkey, and that monkey's going to do everything. And Matt's like, okay, sure. And I remember just arguing with him, because he's like, are you sure you want to put this 6 or whatever it was into your dexterity? Like, that's a terrible idea. I'm like, Matt, no, listen, I want a character that is useless. Please put that 6 into dexterity. Yeah, and then we played Dungeons & Dragons. I'm pretty sure my character died the first session because he was terrible. I didn't understand Dungeons & Dragons had dungeons you had to crawl through, and it was dangerous. I thought it was like a fun thing that you did. But I will say that first character, I love that character. They were based on, the entire idea for them was based on the phrase, stop joshing around. It was an old man. They had a monkey named Josh. And then all that character did was the monkey would do something dumb, and then the old man would be like, stop joshing around.
Oh my
and
God.
and then he was completely useless, did nothing, died. And then that was my introduction to D&D, and I was like, okay, I see that there's value in having a character that's good.
And then you never made a good character ever.
Yeah. To be fair,
yeah.
Adrian did play a cleric, and I let him die in the last campaign we played in. So really, I think I've let him down more than he's let me down.
Okay. Well,
yeah, that's
different experiences. That's fine.
It's true. I continue to this day to build dysfunctional characters. Unless we're playing with Logan, then I make functional characters because I know they'll die. Otherwise.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, that makes sense.
Oh, that's hilarious. I feel like I'd heard that story once, but I completely forgot about it. Oh my gosh.
Yeah, you probably heard it from Matt because he's always like, Adrian, this is not D&D.
I just love that idea of like the companion is the thing that's good. But yeah, it's a monkey. What is it really going to do?
Nothing. I didn't know monkeys were also terrible in Dungeons and Dragons.
Compared to real life, where they have all sorts of superpowers.
They're OP. They're so good.
Okay, I'll take your word for it.
So, what we're here, in addition to tabletop role playing, what we're here to talk about today is improv, because I know a lot of people approaching D&D, they're either going to kind of be intimidated by having to role play or having to come up with things on the fly. So do you guys kind of, why is it that you're qualified? What is your history with improv?
Why are you here to talk about this?
Why did I pick you?
Well, I started doing improv competitively in high school because we had an improv team, which at the time I did not know was a thing at all. And I was just very interested in acting, and my drama professor, that's not what they're called in high school.
Teacher.
Drama teacher. Yep. Mr. West was like, hey, why are you not part of my improv team? Like, you need to audition. And I was like, okay, sounds cool. And then it was buckets of fun. I just sounded like a grandma saying that. Buckets of fun. It's the thing the youths are saying. And then after that, I went to school for theater. And I think it was either our second or third year, Adrian and I started doing classes at Second City.
That's true, we did.
Yeah.
We went downtown once a week.
Yeah, that was fun too. But now that we're talking about Second City, I'll let you talk about it because you went further with it than I did. So
that's true, but I didn't have any prehistory. So that was my first time that I did improv, was when Christy and I did it. And so we went to Second City. We did I think we did the whole original program. It's like by letters, It was A through E.
Yeah, we did all 5 tiers because I think we got like a certificate or something. It was very exciting. And we got to perform on the main stage, which I thought was so dope.
Which they stopped doing, I think, right after us. We were the last year of level E that got to perform on the main stage.
That's amazing. Well,
yeah.
Cool.
And I think what happened afterwards, I think we both auditioned for the conservatory program. Neither of us got into it.
No.
We both didn't get into it, but I think we both got into the long form program.
Yes, that's correct.
But the problem was, the long form program was like $1 million.
Yeah, it was super expensive.
Or something like that.
Yeah.
And so I made the irresponsible decision to just do it anyway.
And I chose not to. Although, I think now, especially in 2020, I was like, damn, I wish I had done it, because now what am I doing? I'm just sitting at home. But, it's hard when you're like a young artist in Toronto, trying to balance paying rent and also doing fun stuff.
Yeah.
Man, Christy, if you want to jump in on some improv jams, I will message you next time there's an online jam going on.
Oh my God. Okay. Yeah. Great. We'll arrange that outside of this podcast.
So the rest of my story, I did the long form program, which I ended up absolutely loving. It was tons of fun. It was really weird. It wasn't a very popular program. There's only 6. I think people were also dropping out like crazy. It was a year-long program. By the end of it, there was I think 4 of us left in this program. But it was tons of fun. I think that's I think that's where I really was improv is improv is dope and amazing, was in that program. It was really cool doing it.
Not when we were doing it together.
Well, because I think that was different, because then improv was very fun, but I don't think I really understood what it was really about.
Okay, yeah, that's fair. I'll accept that.
You know what I mean? So A through E, I think in that context, you're doing improv and it's tons of fun and you're learning the skills. But then with doing it long form, especially with 4 people, it's this weird thing where we put on, I think, a 2-hour show. I mean, it was an hour and a half, but it was a long form show. And then with 4 people, it's you're basically on stage all the time having to come up with stuff. And it's that's just a whole other perspective, which is extremely cool. And then so from there, eventually I did get into the conservatory program, and I did that, but that's not really improv. It's kind of, their system's weird. That's actually more of a sketch program, which I didn't even know before. And so I was super grateful I did long form, because that was definitely my favorite Second City experience. And then currently I still improvise, not as much as pre-pandemic, but we're able to do some online shows every now and then. Just the Toronto improv community is still they've got shows going on. If anyone is interested, maybe you can link this in your podcast. There is a list of like online now. This has just started with the pandemic. There's a list of like global online improv jams that pretty much, not all of them, but a lot of them, like you can just jump into if like you're interested in like practicing improv. You can just take a look at this schedule of online jams. And you can just jump in on something if you just like are interested in kind of like practicing it. So around me, I'll send that to you afterwards. And then I'm also part of the 404s. That's the last thing. The 404s, I joined them like years ago. I think I've been with these guys for like 4 or 5 years. They're tons of fun. We do improv at anime conventions. So we go to conventions, we put on shows. They're really fun. They're like really nerdy shows that we do, whether they're like just like jokey short form shows, or like long narrative shows. And we also still do improv now even, but they're just online. And we actually did our first short form show 3 days ago on Saturday. And it was actually like, it worked pretty well. Nope, I just threw a pen.
He's just so excited about improv that he's throwing stuff on the ground, you know?
I am excited about improv.
See, that almost in itself was like talking about what you're passionate about. So
it's true. It's true. I genuinely do really love improv. It just doesn't make any money. So it is a hobby that I will continue to pursue for thus joy.
Mm-hmm.
And we sure do love our hobbies. And really, when it comes down to it, you did this course on long form improv, but really playing a game of Dungeons and Dragons is essentially that mixed with some dice throwing and, debating about rules.
That is actually a very good point. I can't believe I didn't think about that, about how like a long-term campaign is like long-form improv. Damn, it's true. Good job, Denny, for connecting those dots.
We actually, so we do a show with the 404s. This is my favorite format to do with these guys. If you've ever played Fiasco, the tabletop game.
No.
So Fiasco, it's another tabletop role-playing game. It's super straightforward. It's always pretty much done in one session. And the whole idea of Fiasco is like, it's I actually don't even remember. It's like you're basically just pulling a heist. And it's just full of shenanigans and stuff. And we took that tabletop game. This is another member of the 404s, kind of like, this is like his thing. So he took this game and he basically just turned it into a 2-hour long form show. So he took out the dice. Instead of dice, it's actually audience votes. So it has like an audience element. And so we literally, we do play a tabletop game on stage. And so, yeah, I guess that's all. That's my story. It's a fun thing to do, but yeah, totally. Like it's the same thing.
Yeah. But that is to say that you don't necessarily have to be good at improvising to play Dungeons and Dragons. It really helps if you've got those skills, but they're not. You don't have to be at a masterful level in order to get into Dungeons and Dragons, at least.
If anything, I think like one can inform the other. Like it's great if you're like Adrian or myself and you have that background, but I think almost like doing D&D can then lead to you being better at improv. It's all kind of cyclical in that sense. Yeah,
I mean, like I used to be complete garbage at improvising, and in fact, most of the time I tend to do better when I am reading a script, because if I'm just going off the top of my head, usually I'll stutter a lot. I'll throw in like likes as I'm killing time to try and say what I'm trying to say. But Dungeons and Dragons has really kind of made me at least more concise in figuring out what I want to say, making decisions, that kind of stuff. So yeah, I agree. It's easy to get into D&D if you're an improver, and then it's easy to get into improv if you play D&D,
Exactly.
Normally, I do the question Dicely segment at the end of this podcast, but I thought this question was so on point that it just made sense to kind of bring this up earlier. So this question comes from _Danielle Carey, and they write, what improv skills, if any, are needed? And I assume they mean to play Dungeons and Dragons, because I can't think on my feet. Thank you for the question.
I don't know if this relates so much to like thinking on your feet, although I guess it's all kind of associated with that. But the very first thing I think of like a kind of one of the first rules of improv should also be a first rule of D&D, which is saying yes and, which basically means like if you're in an improv scene, you don't ever want to just like stop the action cold. So if I was to say to Adrian, like, hey, like, Captain, like, where should I steer this ship? And Adrian was like, what do you mean we're on a roller coaster? Like, that would just totally like fuck up the scene, because then it's like I was trying to establish something and now it's just awkward. And we're like, okay, so where are we actually? It just like ruins the rhythm of it. So it can be that same way in D&D of being like, great, now I can't think of like a D&D example. But you get what I mean, what I mean by that. Like, if one character is trying to like to do something, it can be kind of like halting to just say like no to what they're trying to attempt. Like, obviously there's boundaries that have to be respected, but it's just, I think it makes for a more fun game if you can kind of try and like say yes and see where that leads.
Yeah, I guess there's like different versions of that. Because on one hand, if you're a player and you have an idea, it's cool to throw that idea out there and just kind of trust that the players that you're playing will support that in the game, but also that your dungeon master will kind of listen to that. And obviously there's rules to Dungeons and Dragons and everything will go. But it's just cool to have that, I guess, that confidence that, if you have a good DM and your suggestion like totally makes sense in the moment, that's like totally a possibility that they can also jump on.
Yeah. And there is obviously like the skill element of D&D with that. So like, I think like the best thing a DM can do is say like, yeah, let's try it, but you still have to make the skill check, but like maybe it'll work out. And if it does, then like, sweet, something really cool just happened. It's like if you're in combat, instead of shooting an arrow, you want to try and like use a torch to light something on fire, and you pass the skill check, then like, cool, that amazing thing happened. But if the DM right at the gate is like, no, I don't think your character would be able to do that. It's like, okay, well, now I just feel like shit because I don't really feel like I get to be creative,
Yeah, that's kind of the DM failing to be able to improvise. So I think more than anything, it's probably up to the DM really to be the best improviser at the table, if anything.
Yeah, I do think a lot of pressure is on the DM because not only are you trying to like improvise, you would have kind of the story in mind, but you can't just script out an entire novel because the players are going to take it in directions you're not expecting. So you do have to rise to meet that challenge too. But then there is also like the challenge of like just improvising like in character. If you're talking to like a player, I don't know, there's so much improvising, I think, as a DM that you have to do.
But it's also, I think it's not all up to you as the DM. And so you don't have to feel like when I'm DMing, it's not like I'm improving everything. Like the players have such great ideas. There's things that they'll like, even if like, there's things that the players will attempt in solving a situation or a solution. And even if like, as a DM, that's not something that I had planned, it's not necessarily my responsibility to make up how this situation is going to unfold. If my player has a suggestion of like a cool idea, like, this is like a way that they can solve this problem, then I can, like Christy said, I can say yes and to that and just figure out how I can make that work in like the rules of the world. But so that they can still get that moment. Because I feel like as a DM, even if a player just comes up with something that's so fun or amazing or just like has that like element of epicness, then like even if they fail their skill check, sometimes I don't even want them to do a skill check. So I'm like, that's just so awesome. Like I just need to say yes and to that. Like I need this to happen because it totally makes sense and it's totally awesome.
For sure.
So that kind of thing you're mentioning there is often called the rule of cool. Like
I was just about to say that. Yeah.
I haven't heard of that.
Yeah.
Oh, really? Oh, well,
No.
What you described there was basically what that's known as. It's if something at the table happens that is just so good, like a DM will be like, you know what? Fuck it. We're going to disregard the rules. This thing that you just described is so good that it happens. It's gotta.
Yeah.
Oh, I love
If
that.
our listeners want a really good example of a DM that plays by rule of cool, Deborah Ann Wall does it in Geek and Sundry's, I think it's Relics and Rarities is the show.
Yes, that sounds right. I'll confirm.
Yeah, it's on their YouTube channel, I'm pretty sure, but she really goes for rule of cool. Like, and I think it makes for super fun situations too, because it's like, it could just go like the standard battle way, but I think one of the things that happened was like they were underwater or something and they wanted to try and like trip a shark or something, and she was like, yeah, sure. Whatever. It's like, that's so fun. Like, instead of just like, oh, I try and like stab it or whatever.
Yeah.
So confirm, the show is called Relics and Rarities.
Okay, perfect. Thank you.
Yeah.
I'm really impressed that I remembered that. So,
but I think another improv skill, and like I haven't done formal improv, so I don't actually know like any of the techniques, or if you guys have like a specific toolbox of skills per se. But there's also for players, kind of the acknowledgement of not a single person can always be the star of every scene.
that is a good thing to remember.
How do you guys as improvers kind of balance that in an improv sense?
I think that just comes down to, so this is, oh man. So something else that I do with improv is I teach improv specifically to ESL kids. These are kids who they've come from like different places. They barely speak English. And so, but when I teach these classes, I tell these kids that when we're learning improv, two of the fundamental skills that we're working on, even just like, I list three, but I'm just going to talk about one of them. So one of them that I really try to stress with the kids is that when it comes to doing successful improv, one of the most important things is just developing a skill in teamwork.
Yeah, that's very true.
And I think that's kind of literally all it comes down to, is just this mutual understanding that that you're all kind of in this thing together. And it's that's the only way that it works. That you can't, like, if someone is kind of like the star right now, then it's sort of up to them to kind of feel that, understand that, and kind of pull back. And it's sort of up to other people who are kind of sitting back to kind of have their moment. But it doesn't really work if it's like very forceful. If someone's like, "Oh, this is my moment," or "Oh, like you're done," like I'm coming up there. It just comes down to like mutual understanding of teamwork, which I think just comes to like having time playing with each other.
Yeah. I think too, like, it's kind of nice to have that like framework of teamwork to back you up, because it takes a lot of the pressure off you as well. So I remember a lot of the time doing improv stuff, it's like, oh, this scene I get to just be like a prop in the background or something, like specifically for competitions. Because if maybe it's a prompt like I'm just totally blanking on and I have no ideas, but someone else does, I'm like, fantastic. Like that's me not having to try and like figure something out that I had nothing prepared for. But I'm thinking like for improv classes, I was a lot younger then, and I feel like I might have had like an instinct to hog the stage a little, but I don't know. I try not to do it as a player now that I'm older.
Well, yeah. I mean, we've all done things where we're like looking back, it's like, ooh, that I wish I could change that. But you know what? We just learn from the things we've done in the past and continue developing.
Yeah, it's interesting that like that skill of support really takes a lot of practice. And I think you'll even feel that like if you do participate in a jam, whether it's like online or in person, if we get back to that, if you go to kind of like a beginner jam, you kind of end up in situations where someone does kind of hog the stage. But it's very interesting if you go to watch a show that's professional improvisers, they're very give and take. They're very trusting of each other. And I feel like, yeah, it's a very important skill, but also something that just kind of comes with practice, which is so weird to say.
Well, it's true though. Like I think like if you're new to it too, you might feel the need to like fill up space or something because you don't necessarily trust that the other person is going to like step in with something. So you're like, oh, I'll just keep talking, like I have an idea, I'll just keep going with it. So I think it does come down to like trust, and it is built over time to have that trust reach that level. Yeah, everything is a skill, honestly. So
it's very, so we're talking about this. I haven't actually thought about this, I think, until this moment, but the fact that like actual just support is a skill that needs to be practiced.
Yeah.
And thankfully, this group of friends that we've got here that often plays D&D together, I just love how supportive our group is. Like and recently we've been like, okay, here's good things going on in our lives. And we're just like, fuck yeah, I'm so happy that you're doing that. And then somebody else will kind of do that same thing. And it's just, oh yeah, it definitely works in the improv sense of supporting the scene, trusting each other. And I think that's shared with Dungeons and Dragons as well. To kind of boil it down, you got to trust each other. You got to want to support each other, and you got to want to work as a team.
Yeah.
Yeah. I love that.
Basically improv is wholesome. Let's just
improv is wholesome.
Yeah.
good. It only works. And this is why I love comedy, but there's so many different avenues of comedy. And improv is my favorite one because it's the only one that literally relies on people working together.
Damn, that was the sweetest thing ever. God.
That and I think kind of on that point, Adrian, that was the reason I got into theater, was because I liked that type of art because it was so wonderful to have a bunch of people working together to create something that was so spectacular. And I think that's true for music as well, and why I've always loved music. And then now, hilariously, I've kind of become jaded, and now I prefer visual art because I get to do that all alone.
Yeah.
I mean, like, both things have their value.
Yes.
It's funny
yes.
that you say that about theater too, Denny, because like when I was in theater school, that's when I started doing Second City. And it was because like theater school wasn't doing that for me. Like, I don't know, I was in like a program specifically that was all about like compromising and teamwork, and no one wanted to do that. Like, it was always just like, I'm the star, here's my idea. And it was so fucking exhausting. And I was like, I just want to have fun. So I started doing Second City, and I was like, hey, here is what I'm looking for, is like fun creation that is like a team effort and no one's like full of themselves. Because I think like one of the fun things about improv is that you just get to kind of let loose a little, you know, like I think we're quick in like our daily lives or in like any creation. Like for me as a writer, for instance, like you hold yourself back a lot. Like you'll write something, you're like, no, like that doesn't make sense or that doesn't sound good. But you don't have time for that crap when you're improvising. It's like, who cares? Just whatever ideas you have, just let them flow. And it's so freeing. So.
And I'm going to tie that back into the question that Denny originally asked, because I've been back in my head that I wanted to say this entire time. And this works out because the question, the person, I don't remember what their tag was because it was underscore something.
Yeah, underscore Danielle Carey. Yeah.
Great. Well, underscore Danielle Carey. They asked the question, I can't think on my feet, which I've heard so many times before, especially from like just going back to these ESL kids. There's just a great example because they're just fresh. They don't even know what improv means. So they're just like learning this stuff fresh. And what I tell them when they're like, oh, I don't know what to say. I can't do that. I can't think of something up on the spot. Usually it's because they're trying to think of like, what is the perfect thing to say in the moment, which doesn't exist in like an improv context. There is never like a perfect thing to say. It's just kind of like whatever is the best thing that you can come up with in that moment. And even if it's, terrible garbage, it just comes back to like that idea of support, and hopefully everyone else will support that idea. But I just love what Christy just said about just not putting too much stress on the things that you are coming up with. That is sort of the spirit of improv.
Mm-hmm. Something is better than a nothing.
My pen.
A lot of these things. I haven't actually picked mine up from last time, so.
I also wanted to come back to like the thinking on your feet thing, because I do think a lot of people put pressure on it, kind of like what you were saying, Adrian, like, oh no, like I have to talk and it's scary. I'm like, but you're improvising all the time. Like the conversation we're having right now is improvised, like every conversation you ever have is. So really, like, I think if you can think about it in that context, it takes a little bit of the pressure off. At least that's always worked for me. Just like, you don't have to say like the perfect scripted thing. It's just, you're having a conversation. So it makes it a bit easier.
Yeah. And I've mentioned this on previous episodes as well. It's just like D&D is making choices. And I think that's improv too, though there is a bit of a, there's teamwork. There's understanding that you're kind of passing this along, but in a conversation, you're also passing it along. I mean, together you work to steer a conversation. So you really shouldn't feel pressured when you're just talking.
Yeah, exactly.
I think where that pressure comes from, though, is that the thing with, and they're kind of different situations, but with improv, I think the way referring to improv as performance, and usually when there's like, when people are watching you, that's when you feel like you have to do the perfect thing, because all these people are maybe going to judge you. And it might be the same thing on the table, especially, I guess, if you're playing with people that you don't know that well, then there might also be that pressure of like, oh, I don't want to say something dumb because I don't want these other people to judge me. But the reality is, you're all playing Dungeons and Dragons, which is already pretty nerdy. So no one here is allowed to judge anyone.
So my and thank you _Danielle Carey for that question. I that took us quite a bit. That was great.
We had a lot to say there.
There's a lot.
Yeah.
Yeah. More to the podcast. There's more questions.
I do. There are more questions. So, and to kind of bring us back towards a more tabletop topic, do the skills required differ if you're a game master instead of a player? And we kind of already touched on this, but we can go a little more into it.
I think they do. Like I have limited DM experience because I've only done one shot. But I think they do in a sense because as a player, I'm pretty much just thinking about like what my character would do in any given situation. And so it's kind of just one thing to focus on. But I think as the DM, you do have a lot of plates that you're juggling in terms of like, where is the story going next? Like, oh, I need to be a shopkeeper now and talk to them. And like, oh, they want lore or whatever. So I don't know. Adrian, you might know more though, because you've DM'd more than I have.
Yeah, I'm just trying to think about it. I guess from like as a player, really, let me compare this to like fonts of improv. As a player, I feel like you're really only doing like, let's just say like kind of like short form improv style. It's like kind of like that whose line is in any way style improv, where you're just kind of like, there aren't that many consequences for you. I mean, there are like life or death consequences, but in terms of like the things that you're coming up with, you're just kind of like in the moment. You're interacting with your other players. You're interacting with the people in the town. Maybe you're interacting with like some monsters or something that you're fighting. And so there's just like a little bit of improv that you're doing, but you're not really thinking about like the overarching story of the campaign, because that doesn't really matter to you. You're just kind of in this moment playing your character. Whereas as a DM, I feel like the improv skills are a lot different. I'd compare that more to like a long form improv show. Whereas if you're doing, let's say, a 2-hour narrative show, there's a lot more that you have to think about all of a sudden. Just like, I'm just going to talk about long form improv, and then I'm going to try to figure out how you guys can connect it to DMing. So, because in long form improv, you start the show, you establish a bunch of stuff. Which I feel like is similar to Dungeons and Dragons. You start a campaign, you're just kind of establishing stuff. You might have like a story in mind, but chances are like that's going to completely change based on, you know, everything that happens. And so then the improv skill, and I think even like you can take this as like even just like in a session or in an overarching campaign, it's like all that stuff has been established. How the heck am I going to like connect that for my players so that things start to make sense?
Mm-hmm. So. And I think I can kind of I can follow up on that. So I would think of a D&D campaign kind of like a broken rope bridge, and there are several points along the bridge that the bridge is snapped, so there's just loose pieces hanging down. And what each of these pieces represent is like a little fact about each character's backstory. So like, I know that Christy's character has a family member out in the world somewhere, and they're important to the story. But I don't cement where they are or where they're going to be found until maybe at some point the party ends up in this town, and I'm like, this is the perfect time to repair that part of the bridge. And so I reconnect that, and I decide, this is where they are, you run into them, this is why they're here. And I kind of make that up. So I've got these puzzle pieces that I've got, and then when it feels like the right time, I can kind of plug them into the story. And then we just see what happens.
That was a beautiful analogy. Really enjoyed that.
Connecting those dots.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And I guess like, this is really interesting because I feel like different DMs probably do it differently.
Yeah, for sure. I don't think there's any like one way to DM. I think every person brings their own flair to it.
Mm-hmm. I've studied a lot of methods, and some of the more effective ones I found are the ones where you have to plan less, like writing a mystery novel or writing a mystery into a D&D game. It's very hard if you're like, I put the clue behind the portrait on the wall. How what are the odds that they're going to flip that portrait around and look there? Instead, I go,
True.
these are the clues. And like that example I just gave, I'll go, all right, they're going to look here. A clue now exists there and you find it.
Right.
And it's just, even though if my players knew that I was doing that, they might be like, well, this kind of cheapens it. But for me, as also a game designer and trying to move the story forward, it makes sense.
I think that's a really smart way to do it.
Definitely. Like D&D, and different people play it differently, but for me, Dungeons is a game. It's like a piece of entertainment. Like even like both as a DM and as a player, like I'm here because I think it's very fun.
Yeah.
So from a DM perspective, I do that all the time. I don't have it's impossible to follow a script because it wouldn't be enjoyable. But if I just have like a series of like fun things that maybe are going to happen, and then, if my players like stumble across something, then you can just kind of like slip those things in and then try to then make all those random things kind of make sense in the context of that session.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And some of the best stories come from after the fact that things happen. And then you kind of, after a session as a DM, go, but maybe that connects to that, and that means that. Oh my goodness. Now, if I tell my players this, they're going to think I'm a genius, but really I just came up with this after the fact.
Yeah, totally. Or you stole the idea from your players, like something like, something wasn't going to happen at all, but your player's like, oh, wow, I wonder if this person's connected to this person. You're like oh,
they are now.
That totally was the way that it was. Yeah. Yeah.
Wow, you caught me.
You figured out this puzzle, which was way simpler, but you made it more complicated. But now you think that I'm smart, and I love that. Okay, I have one more comparison to make between long form improv and Dungeons and Dragons. And that is that with improv, usually the only thing that you have to go off of before you start the show, you might have an idea of your character, at least to some extent. Like a lot of shows have, whether they're based on like a suggestion from the audience, maybe that's a little bit more involved of a process, you probably have some idea of what your character is. And then over the course of the long form, you're stringing together your character's relationships with the other people on stage, as well as like the pieces of the story that happen. But I feel like as a DM, it's kind of similar in that sense as well. You have predetermined characters, which are your players, as well as kind of the characters that you come up with. And then this is impossible to plan what your players will do. And so in the session, you're just kind of trying to link these threads together to come up with a session that makes sense.
I agree. Even though I haven't DM'd that much, but I agree totally.
I mean, even as a player, you've seen enough DMs do things that I'm sure you totally get it.
Yeah, oh, for sure.
Yeah, you've played enough. So do you guys have any tips or advice about how to get better at improvising or how to use it within a TTRPG context?
I'll say wow, sorry, I just trailed off so hard there.
I love that Christy starts all these because it gives me a chance to.
I'm like thinking as I'm like trying to talk, and I'm like, well, that's an interesting question.
Well, remember what Adrian said. Sometimes there isn't the perfect thing to say.
There's just something to say. What was the question? I forgot it.
Yes, I totally forgot to.
Do you have any tips or advice about how to get better at improvising?
Oh, okay. Yeah. What I was going to say was I think it's two different things. Like you can choose to get better at like just improv in general, like the way that Adrian like does it, or like just getting better at like improvising within the game. So this is more for the latter. What I've found is that you have to be patient in a sense, because the longer you're with the same character as a player specifically, like the easier it becomes in a sense, because you learn things about what that character does in given situations, and eventually you'll just kind of like reflexively like know what they would do, or like know how to talk as them, or like what choices they would make. But it won't happen right away, because when you're playing as a level 1 character, like you don't know that much about them yet. Like you're still kind of figuring it out. Like you might have written a backstory for them, but a lot can happen in the game that'll change things. At this point, for instance, like in my current campaign, I've been with my character now for like 2 years in real life. And so like I know how to play her way better now than I did at the beginning of the campaign because I've spent the time with her. So I think it's just like it just comes as you make decisions in the character and like allow the world to kind of affect you. So that was in-game specific. Yeah.
Yeah.
Finger gun. You can't see it, but it happened. So.
Oh, that's true. People can't see the things that we're doing.
No.
Yeah.
Improv is such a weird thing because it's such a bizarre collection of skills. It's not like on one hand, like just very strictly improv as like a performance art. Like, yes, you can practice getting better at like the games. You can practice getting better at like discovering the thing that the audience is loving and figuring out how to like bring that back. But almost none of that is really that applicable to Dungeons & Dragons, especially as a player. But what is applicable is all the other skills that are so incredibly critical to improv that have almost nothing to do with what like the comedy or the show that you're seeing on stage, which are like those skills that we talked about of like supporting the people around you, of having the confidence to throw out an idea and just see where that takes you. Or even of just like the skill of not taking yourself so seriously, of just like being okay with things panning out in the way that they pan out, whether that's the way that you thought it would go or not. And like
I really like that one a lot. Like the not taking yourself so seriously. Like I think that's so key. So I do think a lot of people come to this game and they kind of like imagine it going a certain way. I think the quicker you can abandon that thought, the more fun you'll have ultimately, because then so much like weird, fun stuff can happen if you just kind of let go of your expectations in a sense.
Yeah. And that's like, yeah. And it's really interesting actually, because I think when I came into this podcast, I thought that we would talk more about like critical skills. But what we're just kind of realizing right now is that a lot of like what is applicable is just like those improv life skills. Mm-hmm. And I think that's very cool. And so I will plug right now, because I think this is so incredibly true. I think that for anyone, I think improv as a thing is so full of amazing life skills that everyone should at some point at least take an improv class. You just should. I think it has nothing to do with wanting to like perform, but it just has a lot to do with understanding like what's happening in your brain, like how you relate to people, how you like speak the ideas that you have, and how comfortable you are like with your ideas, with the things that other people are saying, and like how you can like process all that and just kind of let things come the way they come.
Yeah, absolutely. Mm-hmm. That's why so many people take improv classes when they just want to get better at like public speaking or something, just because it kind of helps you overcome that part of your brain that's like stopping you from just releasing.
Heck yeah. I will say, and like, I feel like I'm ranting so much, but going back to that long form class that I took, that like I didn't really like, I wasn't sure what this was about. I didn't know if I'd love it. Ended up loving it. And I think that one of the things that I really took away from doing that year-long long form improv program is just like this ability to kind of stop thinking so much when I'm in like a situation as like Dungeons and Dragons, or even in a show, and just being able to just kind of like see and listen to and hear kind of like what's actually going on, and just kind of disconnecting from like the thoughts and just kind of participating in like what's in front of me, which is such a simple thing, I think, but it's like so difficult to do sometimes. And I feel like there's like huge value in that.
That made me think of something too, which like I think in terms of a life skill and in terms of a really important D&D skill too, and it kind of ties into what we were saying before, but like not taking the spotlight. I think a really important skill that you can have is just listening to other people. Like don't get too in your head about like, okay, I'm going to do this next, and then I'm going to go like just hear what people are saying and just respond to them, you know? I think that's important in like just your daily conversations to like the more you can get out of your own head and just like totally focus and listen to what the other person is saying, the better, I think, because I think too much of us have a tendency when you're in a conversation to just be kind of like half listening and just being like, oh, once they're done talking, then I'm going to say something really good. But I think you just get to experience more once you stop doing that and just actually listen, you know?
Mm-hmm. And this thing about life skills as well in improv, and how people kind of develop can just go do an improv class just to develop those skills, even if they have no interest in being like a part of the performing art. I think a lot of people also come to tabletop role playing for that same reason. Like once you start role playing and you start improvising, and you kind of get more comfortable as you step into somebody else's shoes and make decisions on their behalf that have less consequences in your own personal life, until you start getting invested in that character, at which point you're going to want to keep them alive, and then it becomes stressful again. But
yeah, that's true.
So like tips and advice for players about improvising in D&D. Again, you don't have to be an improviser to play D&D. Your voice at the table is valued, and you should keep in mind that everybody else's voice at the table is also valued, and you should give them that same consideration. Have confidence in your decisions. Just make a decision, see what happens. Support your teammates in their moments of stardom, and you'll get yours as well. And again, that goes back to that voice kind of thing. And just know you're in it for the fun, and we'll have a good time.
Yeah, exactly.
Wow. I love that you just took all this spaghetti that we kind of vomited out and summarized it.
That's kind of what I'm good at.
I literally was just thinking as you were wrapping all that up, I was like, damn, I could never be a podcast host because I totally have forgotten everything that's been said up until this.
Me too. I was like, how does he do this? I can't remember anything that's happened.
Well, I mean, I bring you guys in.
God.
Go ahead.
We joked about this before the podcast started, but you were like, oh, like, what do people need to be good at improv? And I was like, ADHD.
I mean, yeah, this is the skill I'm good at. I bring you guys in to talk, and then when it comes down to it, I could cut you guys out, and it's just me summarizing shit.
Yeah, that's true. After we leave, then he will just re-say everything, but make it concise.
He's like, all right, here's what I've decided on. And then it's just the Denny show.
You guys may be wondering how I became an expert at improv. Well, I just listened to some podcasts.
Yeah, all right.
I might have recorded them.
Should we just plug a bunch of places that you can go to get better at improv?
Sure, go for it.
I mean, I know it is a pandemic, so it's a little bit trickier.
Yeah, it's a bit harder.
Yeah, it's not as like the way it used to be pre-pandemic. You can go to, like, let's say, it's sad because now their spaces are gone. So actually, I'm not even going to get into this because who knows what's going to happen after the pandemic. But I will talk about what you can do right now during the pandemic. And so if you go to any of kind of like the major improv houses in Toronto, they're pretty much all running online classes. Like Bad Dog Theater's doing online classes. Second City, I'm pretty sure, is still doing online classes. And you might think like an online improv class, like, is that really that good? And I haven't taken one, so I can't tell you, but I've heard from friends that have that it is actually quite comparable. Obviously, it's different, but all the elements of that class are still there, and there's still a lot of value in it. The other thing is that I did mention there is a list of global improv jams that exists. It's like a Google Doc schedule thing, and I can send that to you, Denny, if you want to plug that. And I think that just like showing up to one of those, which I think in itself might take a lot of confidence, but I think if you can just like seek that discomfort and jump in on that, I think that's a great way to stretch that skill. And
sorry, can I interrupt you for a second? Can you explain to our listeners who are less familiar with theater and improv what a jam is?
Oh, that's a good question. A jam is just like, it's instead of like a show, a jam is like, and it's different now. So previously, what a jam was pre-pandemic is you would just go into a space and they do an improv jam. Anyone can go up on stage and play. You just sign up your name and you get to do some scenes. People, usually it's just improvisers that watch, and it's just kind of like an impromptu kind of, it's planned, but it's like a show that doesn't really have any stakes. You're just doing it for fun, for practice.
Right, it's improv for play.
Absolutely, which all improv is, but it's like, yeah, like there's no stakes, it's just practice, it's just fun. Online, there's probably not going to be an audience at all, because who's going to hop into a Zoom show to watch your improv jam. No one is. But they're just great ways to meet people and play and practice.
And sorry, I cut off your third point after that.
Oh, damn. I don't know where it was.
Oh, dear.
Oh, no.
I'm so sorry.
I'll say as well, if there happens to be anyone listening who is in high school, which I don't know if there is, but if your high school has an improv team, if teams are still happening, I really don't know what school's like in a pandemic, but post-pandemic, if your school has an improv team, you should really join because it's a lot of fun to like do the competitions and you learn a lot of like the base improv skills in that setting, as well as having like kind of a mentor there, like as your teacher coach to guide you through it. So it just like helps kind of build that foundation, which is really cool.
Yeah, if you're in high school and you're in an ESL class, you might have access
and call up Adrian and he will give you a private session.
But we still run them. We run them online.
Perfect. Yeah, there you go.
Wow. This has been a very wholesome conversation. Thank you both.
Absolutely.
Anytime. I love getting wholesome.
Now, we've talked a lot about having fun, but would you guys like to play a game on this podcast?
Absolutely.
I would love to lose this game. Yes.
I forgot that we're doing this. Okay. I'm glad we're doing this now, though, because now, like, now I can just expel the rest of my remaining brain cells. Not a lot of them, but I can expel them, the rest of them.
All 2 brain cells.
2 brain cells.
Out the head.
That bathroom
All right,
filming
let's
really
do
took
it.
a lot out of you, eh?
I didn't spend all day. I had no water. I didn't know I was going to be there.
Oh no.
I
You
was
were in
like,
bathrooms and you had no water?
Well, there were like most of them weren't working.
Ah. All right. Well, the game we've got here today is, as over these last few episodes, is a new one. What I've got here is I've got some questions about spells within D&D. And, well, I'm going to need both Adrian and Christy to do some spell checking. This is Spell Check. So,
Dun, dun,
Dun, dun, dun, dun.
to give you guys a low...
Enjoy spelling, Christy?
What?
Are you good at spelling?
No.
Oh, same.
Oh, dear. Yeah,
Do I have to
less
spell
about...
the spells?
Well, so to give you guys a lowdown on these rules, it's basically Jeopardy. The previous guest, Jesse Beam, gave me this idea for this game. So thank you, Jesse Beam, for this. The rules are, this is like Jeopardy. So there are 9 questions, which I'm screen sharing with these guys. So listeners at home, you won't be able to see this, but for Christy and Adrian's enjoyment, they are able to see this. So there are 9 questions here. And there are 3 categories, and each row is worth a first level spell slot at the top, second level spell slot in the middle, third level spell slot at the bottom. That's how the points are working. So we're going to roll a d20 to see who goes first, and then whoever goes first chooses their category and the spell slot they want the question for. I will read you the question. You can buzz in after I read the question by saying 2 syllables of your name.
Cool. Can I say fireball instead? Just because I don't like my name. So.
Sure.
Name. She gets a
Sure.
fireball. I want to say something cool.
All right,
Too
what do
bad
you
I
got
took
for
it.
me?
I'll say, but it has to be 2 syllables. I'll just say ice ball.
Fire and ice,
All right.
baby.
So,
right.
sorry. So I read the question. You chime in with that. Whoever chimes in gets to answer the question in the form of a question, like Jeopardy.
Okay.
If you get the answer correct, you will get the spell slots that the question is worth. If you get it wrong, you will lose that spell slot, and the other person gets the chance to steal. At which point, whoever gets it right gets to choose the next question. Then we keep going until there will be one final question at the very end.
As with most
All right.
games, I think I just have to play it to figure it out. So let's do this.
It's a lot of rules. So I'll have you both
Are we
roll
rolling?
for initiative.
What do I get to add to it? Because I only rolled a 5.
It's just the D20, unfortunately.
Damn it.
20. It's fine, Chris. I rolled a 2.
Oh. Yeah, that's basically how
Okay.
today's been going for us.
So for the listeners at home, the 3 categories are conjuration, necromancy, and evocation. So each is a different school of magic. Christy, which question would you like first?
Okay, to start, I'm just going to do conjuration for 100.
Conjuration for 100. All right, so I'm going to read the question. After the question's read, then you guys can chime in with your fireball and ice ball.
Okay. So it doesn't matter that she chose it. Either of us can answer it.
That is true. Yes. She just gets to choose which question gets picked. Okay. So the question is, or the clue, I suppose, is, there aren't many spells that share a name with a musical, but this first level spell does. It's quite slick.
Ice ball.
Adrian, go for it.
Grease.
That is correct.
Oh my God, that was so good. I literally was like, singing in the rain? That's not a spell.
In the rain.
Damn, holy fuck.
Oh, well
Is
done.
Adrian gonna really beat me?
Oh my God. My favorite Dungeons and Dragons spell. Singing in the rain.
Okay. So Adrian, you got that question right. So you get to choose the next one.
All right. Let's just go in order, but not really. We'll do evocation for 100.
Evocation for 100. All right, here's the clue. This cantrip would be incredibly effective in a prankster's hands, keeping in mind that this is from the school of evocation.
Fireball.
And don't worry about...
I
Okay, yeah. Go for it, Christy.
have absolutely no idea. Okay, I just wanted to do it so I can think out loud now.
All right, I'm setting a timer on now.
Oh shit, cantrip and evocation. I'm just gonna say, what is mage hand? I don't even think that's evocation.
Mage hand is incorrect.
Yeah,
Adrian,
okay,
you get a
that's fine.
chance to steal. Timer's going.
Probably people listening to this are like, dude, you guys are so dumb. It's so obvious.
Oh my God.
All right, the timer has expired, so the question passes. The answer is, what is shocking grasp?
Fuck, that's a good one.
I
I just need listeners at home to know that our heads are fully empty, okay? So don't judge us.
Why is
too
that
harshly.
a prankster?
Because it's like a joy buzzer.
Yeah. Like when you handshake and you buzz your hand. Yeah.
I get it.
So
We roll now?
nobody... no. So what happens is, because nobody got that right, it just passes back to whoever had the choice last time. So Adrian, you get to pick the next one.
Okay, I'm horrified for this. Actually, fuck it. Let's go to swear. This is probably PG.
No, we can swear. I asked in the first episode.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
Like, it's actually pretty rare that I went an entire thing without swearing. That's crazy. Let's do conjuration. Yeah. That was easier. Let's go with conjuration 200.
Okay.
Conjuration 200. All right. Here is the question. Dr. Frankenstein would have found this third level spell quite useful when creating his monster.
Ice ball.
Fireball.
Oh, Adrian got it first.
Damn it.
Is it raised dead?
Unfortunately, that is incorrect.
Keeping
in mind, this is a conjuration spell.
Conjuration. Yeah. I was going to say raised dead too, so that's not good. Oh no. Third level conjuration.
All right, timer's going.
What is turn undead?
Turn undead. Unfortunately not. That is not a spell. That is a cleric ability.
Okay, well, you know what? No need to be so pedantic.
So the answer
yes
there.
And to my answers.
Oh,
call
my bad.
Lightning.
What the answer is? What is call lightning?
Oh, because Frankenstein has something to do with lightning.
Because that's how he brings him to life. Fuck.
Yep.
My brain is like, in these games, I get so panicked that I can only see one possible avenue to go down. And if you're thinking if you're thinking outside the box at all, I just can't follow you into that area. So it'll be really interesting.
But I guess that happened in that other one too. It was also lightning.
Yeah. Cool. Does Adrian get a pick again?
He does, unfortunately, because nobody got that one right.
Oh my God.
Clowns rigged.
Let's go back to the easy ones. Let's try necromancy for 100.
All right, necromancy for 100. The question is, or the clue is, this first level spell sounds like it could be an invention made by an evil genius.
It's so hard.
Would you guys like to make this open book?
Kind of. Can we do that?
Sure, I'll allow it.
Oh my God, thank you. I feel so dumb.
at this point now it's just a race to see who gets to push the button first.
Oh god!
I made the last game way too hard, so
I lost Discord.
oh no!
Where did Discord go?
You're still here.
So it sounds like this is a cantrip or a first level.
I'm still here. Yeah, I'm fine.
The clue
level.
again is this first level spell. Sounds like it could be an invention.
Fireball.
Yes.
What is Ray of Sickness?
Ray of Sickness is correct.
Yeah. Okay.
All
Now,
right. I'm feeling.
see, open book is still, there's still pressure to find it. I just don't feel so stupid the entire time.
I wouldn't have gotten that even with
and I was wondering if I should make this open book, but now that I'm hearing this feedback from you guys, I'm glad. I think I should do this moving forward. Okay.
Well, you should try it with someone like people.
I
who,
did that
actually
yesterday.
spells.
And don't worry,
Like
nobody got.
Oh, okay.
Nobody got positive points.
Okay. Oh, that's a relief to hear. I thought you were going to say they nailed it and you guys are just extra dumb. Like,
No.
cool. Okay.
For the listeners at home, the current score is -2 spell slots Christy, -1 spell slot Adrian.
Hey, you don't need to put us on blast like that.
I just want to keep everyone up. All right, Adrian. Or no, Christy got it.
No,
Christy, you get to choose the next one.
Wow. All right. Let's do evocation for 200.
Christy, you have found the font of magic. So this isn't a rule I explained. So what's going to happen here is you've got the font of magic. So this means you are the only one who can answer this question and Adrian cannot steal it. Because you guys are in the negative, I'm going to give you the 2 spell slots that this question is worth. And normally you'd be able to wager a number of your points to double or nothing.
Right.
But now you're just going to essentially, you're going to get the chance to score your 2 spell slots. So let's move over to that question. If you had to define what a tsunami is, you could use the name of this 5th level spell.
And we're in evocation, right?
We're in evocation, yes. I'm going to put on a 20-second timer. I think 10 seconds has been way too slow.
Right, tsunami. Oh, fireball.
Yes.
I shouldn't have made it another spell name because I realize how confusing that is now.
I said that, I'm like, Christy, no, it's not fire.
What is destructive wave?
Christy, that is correct. You're now back to 0 spell slots. Out of the negative.
Yes. Woohoo.
Nice.
Well
This
done.
isn't one.
I really like this game now that it's open book.
So Christy,
Cool.
you can choose the next question.
Alrighty. Let's do conjuration for 300.
Conjuration for 300. All right. The clue is a 7th level spell that might be the reason I couldn't find my copy of Mario Kart when it fell behind the couch, even after I shifted the furniture around.
Ice ball.
Yes, Adrian.
Is it plane shift?
Yes, Adrian. It is plane shift.
Fuck.
I
Damn.
only guessed that because you used the word shift.
Oh, you got there so fast.
And I did
Did
that
you look that one
intentionally.
up or did you know that one?
Oh no, I looked it up.
Okay, good. I was like, if you just knew it, I would have been so mad. Okay.
All right. The score is now 2 spell slots, Adrian, net 0, Christy. Adrian, you get to choose the next question.
Evocation 300.
Evocation 300. All right. The clue is this 8th level spell deals 12d6 radiant damage. But if this happened in reality, it would result in a supernova and destroy our solar system.
Fireball.
Yes, Christy.
What is sunburst?
That is correct.
Oh,
All right. Well
pretty bad.
done.
Some blew up.
Christy, what is your
All
next
right.
pick?
Okay, let's do necromancy for 300.
Necromancy for
Trying to get those
300.
points back.
All right, the clue is this 6th level spell isn't quite a home a genie would want. Then again, do you think they actually like lamps?
Fireball.
Yes, Christy.
What is magic jar?
Holy crap. Okay. So maybe the open book is OP at this point, but I'm impressed.
You know, but the thing is, though, if it was an open book, I truly did not know magic jar was a spell.
Oh yeah, we'd be here forever.
I would just be sitting there and be like, what is genie lamp?
What is genie lamp?
Genie lamp.
He said genie, so that's gotta be it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't feel bad
Okay.
about this. This is funny. All right.
Okay, so then
And then-
it's
so the-
necromancy for 200.
Yeah, it's automatically that. So the clue is the Pixar movie Coco is filled with many of these. You'd have to add a D to the end of the first word in this third level spell to make this joke work.
Oh,
What? Wait, what's level spell? Third? Shit. Oh no. So
how's
confused.
Coco about? It's like those skeleton guys.
About the afterlife or
Yeah.
something.
The timer's going.
Have to add a D to the end of one of these? What? Doesn't make sense.
You have to add a D to the end of the first word in this
Ice
third
ball.
level spell. Yes,
Is it
Adrian.
animated dead?
That is the joke. Animate dead is the spell.
Oh, that's really funny. I was like so confused. I was looking like a lot of these already have D at the end. Okay.
I'm
Animated.
I'm so glad. Holy crap. Oh,
Joke's
I'm
brutal.
killing myself. Oh, all right.
boy.
So, all the questions are answered. The score is currently 6 spell slots, Christy, 4 spell slots, Adrian. I'm so glad you guys aren't in the negative. So,
Me too.
what's going to happen now is the final cast. And what this is I'm going to show you guys what the category of the final question is going to be. And then, based on how confident you are, you could choose to wager a number of your spell slots. If you get the next question correct, you will earn your wagered spell slots. So you'll double or nothing. If you get the question wrong, you will lose your wagered spell slots.
Okay.
Are you guys ready?
I don't really get it, but let's do it.
It'll make sense in a sec, I hope. All right, so the final questions category is going to be components. So
No.
now I want
I
you
don't know
guys
if I
to
can
write
open
down.
book this.
Yeah, I don't think it's going to help you. Actually, I'm going to require you guys not to open book this one because I'm going to give you 4 possible answers.
Oh, it's multiple
Oh, okay.
choice?
Great. That's fine.
Yes, this one is multiple
I love
choice.
that.
So, on your pieces of paper that I've asked you guys to prepare ahead of time, can you write down a number of spell slots you'd like to wager? Don't tell us, just write it down. We'll find out in the end how much you've wagered. And let me know when you're good.
I'm good.
Cool.
All right. So, I'm going to give
nervous.
you guys the question, and then after I show you the question, write down your answer for the question on that same piece of paper.
Oh.
Are you guys ready?
Yeah.
Yep.
All right. So the final question is, the final clue. The spell designers hid some funny clues within some spells. The component for this spell is a legume seed, which means that this spell is actually a fart joke. Very mature, am I right? Your possible answers are Cloud Kill, Control Winds, Gust of Wind, Stinking Cloud, all of which are actual spells within the game. So write down your answer on your paper.
I'm glad you clarified that.
Yeah. So write down your answers on your paper. And once you're both ready, I'll ask you to hold up your pieces of paper. Right. Everybody's
So
good, I'm
loud.
assuming.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. Hold up your pieces of paper.
So you can see it? Oh, no.
So,
0.
okay. So Adrian has written 0 spell slots and
I'm
wrote
just
down
banking
Stinking
on
Cloud. So
Christy getting it wrong.
Rude.
okay.
Oh my
So I'm
God.
going to say Adrian is incorrect. So he
Oh,
loses nothing because
no.
he bet nothing. Christy, what did you write?
I had the same answer as Adrian. I also put Stinking
Oh.
Cloud. Fuck.
And how much did you wager?
3.
Christy loses 3 spell slots, putting Adrian in the lead by 1 spell slot.
Yes!
The
You freaking, in a Jeopardy game, you freaking Price of Righted me. So mad.
I was gonna just wager all 4, but I was like, going the way this way is going, we'll probably both get this question wrong. So I'm just wager 0.
That's fair, honestly. What is it? Is it
the
Cloud
answer-
Kill?
the answer to this is Gust of Wind.
Oh, fuck. That's so annoying because I have like that spell in my current campaign, but it's like built into an item, so I never look at the components for it. So angry.
Oh
Wait,
dear.
is there not another one? Or is it just
Nope,
the one?
that was the end of the game. Congratulations, Adrian, on
Oh,
winning
fuck.
spell
I
check.
thought I had a chance to
I thought
like
you had that for sure. Oh, that's fantastic.
so mad.
Oh,
So, I mean, we already established at the beginning of the episode that you were here to win because you were trying to like swoon or try to woo Denny.
That's true. That's true.
So-
I rigged this from the start.
apparently.
So mad.
Wow. For the listeners at home, if you want to submit a question to Question Dicely, send an email with your question to dicelychannel@gmail.com. Include the letters QD in your subject, and don't forget to leave a social media handle for me to give you a shout out. Now, for my guests, thank you again for coming on the show. Do you have any social media you'd like to plug, or where can people follow you?
Oh,
Christy, this is your thing.
This is my thing, is plugging myself on social media. Hope I don't fuck it up. You can follow me on Instagram, which is at Christy Clow. I'm going to spell it now because all of my stuff is related to that. So it's CHRISTYCLOW. And I am on YouTube as well under the same thing. So Christy Clow. And yeah, I like to make videos and content about my nerdy passions and about fantasy things. So come hang out. I love to talk about all things nerdy with you.
For me, you can just follow me on Instagram, Adrian, the number 4, and then EVR. Adrian forever. I post just unfiltered shenanigans, just whatever I feel like posting. And sometimes I'm really proud of the things
You should be.
I should be. Last week, I just spontaneously reviewed 20 candy bars. I was like, why did I do this? I don't know, but it's so fun.
Some premium content right there, folks.
I'm going to plug one more thing. This isn't really me, but I'm a part of this. This is the 404, as I've told before. So we usually do shows at conventions. If you're a convention, go Anime North, Otaku-thon, and any of those nerdy things, you can see us there. But we're also doing shows online right now. And so follow them on Instagram. It's just the 404s. 404 and then an S. I update on shows because we do some fun improv shows online, and I'll send Denny a link to that calendar I was talking about with those worldwide improv hangouts.
Yes. So I'll have links to all of their social media in the description of the video if you're watching on YouTube. If you're watching or if you're listening to this elsewhere, hopefully at this point, I'll have links in the description of wherever you're listening to this podcast. Otherwise, Christy's YouTube channel can be found amongst the Dice Friends on this YouTube channel. And I greatly appreciate you both being on here to talk about improvisation and tabletop.
Thank you for letting us on here to ramble.
Yeah. Thanks for bringing form to our spaghetti.
That's what I do. I make a good spaghetti.
Make it a mom spaghetti. Arms
knees
weak. Knees weak. Oh, fuck.
Uh-oh.
Okay, well, end it now.
On that awkward note, thanks everybody for tuning in to Speak Dicely. My name is Teni Brant, and I will speak Dicely with you again soon. Bye-bye.
Ah!
The Speak Dicely podcast is produced by Teni Brant. The intro and outro music were created by Salik Brant. If you enjoyed this content, be sure to subscribe to the Dicely D&D YouTube channel. There you can listen to previous episodes of the Speak Dicely podcast, as well as watch our introductory series on how to play Dungeons & Dragons. You can also follow us on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, and Twitch at Dicely D&D. And you can now listen to the podcast on Podbean, Spotify, and Apple Podcasts. We'll see you next time on the Speak Dicely podcast.